the budget making process, there are the budget estimates,
yes.
Which are proposals on the spending, that this is what we want to spend money on. We will find money somewhere, but this is what we want to spend money on. And that's what the executive wants to spend money and how. Then there's an appropriations bill that comes immediately after that, now authorizing, giving authority to the government to actually withdraw money from consolidated fund to spend it the way they had said in their budget estimates. And then now finally the finance bill, which is much talked about, where focuses on revenue raising measures, taxes, duties and others.
That's when we get...
Now that's where we talk about.
Friend, there is the step which, with tremendous respect, I think you skipped. The policy. I mean, like, we want to increase these taxes. The policy behind this is this and that and that. And that by law is supposed to be the PFMA, the Public Finance Management Act, is supposed to be tabled. Kenyans are supposed to be, under the Constitution, any policy, any government policy, you're supposed to table it, have public participation, however unpalatable it is to the government functionaries, it is supposed to be tabled. So the lack of the policy, why, for instance, are you increasing these taxes in this class or on that class? And what is the policy behind these State House increments of, appropriation every now and then? What is the policy behind it? That is often, in fact, almost invariably missed out, including this period, because the Kenyan people are supposed to be told, what we are headed to in the next 5 years, for instance, is this. And therefore, the finance bill is supposed to be taking that trajectory, supposed to be contributing this much for the achievement of that. We don't have that. And the ministry or the CS in charge of planning is supposed to be telling us, we have planned for this. What does the president do? Go on rooftops of vehicles and begin telling us, that market we're going to do. Even though Schedule 4, the Constitution tells him that is not your role or your domain. It's supposed to be the county government. And he tells you, now we have this and that dam to construct, and we don't see. And there's that stadia and whatever. So the long-term planning is totally out of sync with the budget making processes that we have. And in the end,
it's a planning problem.
There is a planning problem. And I don't want to blame anybody in the Treasury's planning department. Meshach has acknowledged, thankfully, that there is the external hand of the colonizer. And the colonizer has a primary objective that is, in my view, twofold. A, to advance their home agenda. Like we saw the French, Prime Minister, seeing that the dwindling, the shrunk space for them in West Africa and the Sahel region, they now want to come to East Africa and they want to engage the English-speaking nations using Kenyan. You've rightly pointed out, the springboard by means of which then to launch that program is a Kenyan space. So if we apprehend that the colonizer is coming with that in mind, the same way they did in the Berlin Conference, that they sliced up without the participation of the African, sliced up Africa in, the way that they did and distributed African resources amongst themselves that way. And we had the railway in the name of development, creating the access to the interior, but it was supposed to channel out resources. So we have the European Union engaging instead, note, this is not a country, the European Union, instead of engaging the African Union, it comes over and engages Congo. Engages Kenya separately, engages Tanzania separately. The same fragmentation that happened during that period still is extended. So the budget making process invariably, and the Kenyan people ought to know this and understand this, that the same hand is out there to ensure that extraction of resources still goes on, which is why I wonder, this president he tells us, the coffee prices, we should not be lamenting about, the coffee prices. They have hiked, they've gone up. But look, Mr. President, show me your program and your plan for value addition. We should be having a coffee processing plant so that now the coffee buyer in California is able to come and get processed coffee from Kenya, grade AA, at the higher price than telling me to export that to New York and allowing that person to come over, to go to Nyeri, to get the grade AA coffee. So I'm saying, in terms of leadership, in terms of planning, in terms of the interrogation, the interest of the Kenyan people is lacking. Allow me, Fred, to say this to the Kenyan people, that we need leadership. And as we go over to the 2027 period, a leadership that is able to articulate the Kenyan people vision of they themselves. Where do you want to be? You can no longer entertain and have the youth, the large swath of youth that goes unemployed. What are the plans for having them engaged and employed? And you cannot have these as long as you have poor leadership.
All right. Before we get to give your final comments, let's listen once more to Honorable